Welcome to the People's Podcast, an employer's resource by Group Management Services. I'm your host, Alyse Kimble.
This podcast does not constitute legal or financial advice. Its accuracy, completeness, or adequacy is not guaranteed. Use the information at your own risk. Consult an attorney or financial advisor before taking any action.
Hello and welcome to the GMS People's Podcast. We're here at episode 6, and I'm sitting here with Tom Smith, who is our VP of Retirement Services here at GMS, and Racco DiLauro, who is a VP of DiLauro, Ratcher & Thomas, or DWT. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Perfect. We are talking all things retirement today, and so I have the experts here to kind of help guide our conversation. I really want to start with what's changed in 2024. So this is definitely the business owners here kind of want to know what's changed as far as 2024 retirement epidemic, Secure Act 2.0. What's going on with that? So let's start with updates for contributions.
Well, you say what's happened with the Secure Act 2.0. What hasn't happened? I mean, they've gone in and made a lot of positive changes, including contributions. So in 2024, the contributions were updated to $23,000 if you're under 50, and if you're over 50, you can add another $7,500 as a catch-up to that $23,000. So the change from $22,500 to $23,000 in 24 for the contributions.
Awesome. So the catch-up contributions have increased.
The catch-up contribution has remained the same at $7,500. But they have added, which I think we'll talk about later, a new catch-up contribution for those between 60 and 63.
Nice. Awesome. When it comes to new 401k withdrawals, are there new rules?
There are. So you can take a $1,000 withdrawal penalty-free. So normally there's a 10% penalty to an early withdrawal before 59 and a half. You can now take $1,000 per year out without penalty. It's supposed to be an emergency withdrawal, which can now include things as far as medical, divorce, domestic abuse is new. Really anything that you can qualify and then prove as an emergency, you can take out a $1,000 penalty-free withdrawal.
Nice. Okay.
And I'll just add some clarification there. So a company has to add that as a feature to their plan. So for example, GMS has a multiple employer plan. We've added that as a feature for employees to be able to take advantage of. So if somebody's not using the GMS plan, that doesn't necessarily mean that might be a feature that was made available, but it's an option that's out there for 2024.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think most of the things that we talk about today are going to be plan specific. If the provider or if the employer adds it to their plan, it's available. But everything that we would talk about minus contributions would be that's the case. You know, the employer would have to add that option to their plan.
Awesome. Okay, good to know, definitely for business owners. Let's talk about the employer matching for student loan payments.
Yeah, so that's a newer feature that's out and available now. It's considered to be a discretionary feature. So again, a company has to elect to make that as an option on their plan. And essentially what they're doing is they're giving business owners the ability to make an employer contribution directly to the employee's student loan. And I guess it's not like they're not necessarily putting the money directly into the student loan. The employee has to self-certify that, hey, we've contributed X number of dollars into the student loan. And so if they were eligible for an employer match, let's say 3%, and let's just say that was $3,000, then they'd be eligible to potentially get that money towards their student loan payments, reimbursed towards what they were paying for student loans.
Nice. Would the employee have to go to the employer and ask for that, or is that an employer would the employer kind of have to work with their plan to kind of put that together and then kind of outline that, communicate that to the employee?
So it's my understanding that the employer decides if they want it to be added as a feature, and then it would be coordinating with the employee. Because I'm of the understanding that the employee is still making their student loan payments, and then they're getting reimbursed for that when they self-certify that they've made that payment.
Interesting.
But that's
a nice benefit to offer.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And we work. So for example, with our plan, we work with a provider like Transamerica. So we lean on them in their compliance department in situations like this. So for example, it's not an actual feature under the GMS plan as of today, but it's my understanding that as of 2025, that'll be a feature that companies should be able to take advantage of. And so we're exploring those right now.
Very cool.
I think this change was really geared towards the newer employer, maybe fresh out of college, and they can't afford to put money into their 401k yet, even though they really should be, because they have the student loan debt. So the way I understood it is that if you're not contributing to the plan and you're eligible for a match, you can use your the money that you're putting towards your loans as hey, I would be putting this in my 401k, but I have these loans. So then the employer can then basically match what you're paying up to the employer match of the company or of the plan.
That's really cool. I like that. Different option. I have on here Roth 401k RMDs. First and foremost, what's an RMD?
So an RMD is a required minimum distribution. So
Okay.
once you hit a certain age, you have to start taking money out of your retirement account. Right now, so the first Secure Act bumped it up from 70.5 to age 72, and then the Secure Act 2.0 bumped it up to age 73.
Gotcha.
And so with Roth with money that's inside the Roth account, they base an RMD off of the total account balance. And so now what they've said is in 2024, the Roth balance doesn't have to be included in calculating the RMD. So for example, if you had a $100,000 account and $80,000 was in traditional pre-tax, but $20,000 was in the Roth, you're going to base the RMD calculation on the $80,000, not necessarily the $20,000.
Gotcha.
Now there are certain rules, and I don't know them all off the top of my head, but in certain instances, if you have like a beneficiary account, so you're taking an RMD off of beneficiary account, I think they still use the whole balance to calculate that. But if it's coming from your account and you're taking that RMD, that's where they're going to look at that.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. Let's fast forward to 2025. We're already in December. Crazy. But 2025, what's kind of coming down the pipeline? So automatic enrollment, is that something that's changing?
It is, yeah. I mean, maybe we should talk contribution limits first.
Yes.
To lay out the new contribution
Yeah, for
limits.
2025, the new contribution limit is going to be $23,500.
Okay.
Bump up from $23,000. Again, that catch-up contribution for those over 50 is going to stay at $7,500. So total contribution of $31,000 would be the max for someone over 50. And I'll go ahead and touch on it. So in 2025, you're now from age 60 to 63 going to be able to contribute up to $11,250 extra dollars as your catch up versus the $7,500. Why they chose from 60 to 63, I'm not entirely sure, but I think they use 65 as the retirement goal. So
Okay.
they're allowing older people to put money in as they're getting closer to retirement, or at least age 65.
And similar to the catch-up, that should probably increase each year, because I think they wrote it into the legislation that it's a minimum of at least 10,000, the greater of 10,000 or 150% of whatever the catch-up limit is. So because the catch-up limit's $7,500, 150% of that is $11,250. So if the IRS came out next year and said, hey, we're bumping up the catch-up limit, then that would increase what that age 60 to 63 catch-up option would be as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you want to circle back to automatic enrollment?
Sure, yeah. So automatic enrollment. So this is one of those, we talk about with the Secure Act, there's discretionary features and then there's mandatory features.
Right.
That's a mandatory feature. And it applies to, really, it kind of goes back and applies to any company that established a plan in 2023 or 2024. So, like, for example, any companies that did that, we're actually going through an amendment process right now to add automatic enrollment for 2025. Because starting 1/1/25, any company that starts a 401k plan is going to be required to have automatic enrollment as a feature on their plan. So historically, the way 401k plans work, you roll it out to an employee. If they take no action, then nothing happens. Well, with automatic enrollment, no action is now in fact an action. So if that employee is not voluntarily enrolled,
They're going to be
or voluntarily
automatically-
opted out, then they're enrolled at, with our plan, it's 3% pre-tax. I think there's kind of defined options of where you can start it and where you got to end.
Yeah, the range is 3 to 10%. So
Correct.
you could choose anywhere from 3 to 10%. I'd say the more common choice would be the 3%, because if someone's not going and creating their account and setting their contribution, they're probably not that interested. So you don't want 10% of their paycheck to start going into the plan when,
To be like, what's happening?
yeah, where's my money? So
Now, for full transparency, there's it's usually in what's called an EACA option, which brings about a 90-day grace period. So let's say somebody was automatically enrolled January 1st. They'd have 90 days to opt out and actually get their money returned back to them.
Okay. Would
with
they
no
be
penalty.
reaching out to their employer to do that, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Whoever's handling their plan. So,
Gotcha.
for example, if they're on the GMS plan, they could reach out to our team directly and say, hey, we want to opt out. They can get their money back. Because it comes out pre-tax, they'll have to pay taxes on those monies,
Yeah.
but they're not going to be penalized.
Is this something that they would want to include in their handbook, probably, that they have employees sign just so they're aware of it?
That's a good question. Possibly. With handbooks, you leave some provisions more open-ended because companies will, make changes to their retirement accounts.
Right.
But yeah, that's going to be a feature that's not going to be going away. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. So if a company is regularly operating less than 10 employees, they don't necessarily have to do it.
Okay.
And if their business has not been in place for 3 years, you can have an exemption.
Okay. Would they have to file that with the government?
No, I think you just have to, it's my understanding, you just have to prove, like, if you're regularly operating with 4 or 5 employees,
Gotcha.
you wouldn't have to put that feature in place. But if you started to regularly operate 10 or more, then that would be something you'd have to look to add.
And for employees who want to opt out, Tom, it's as simple as going on the Transamerica website and choosing to opt out from the plan, correct?
If they're opting out beforehand, so
Right.
like if they're becoming eligible, they can opt out beforehand just by enrolling at 0, choosing not to participate. The opt out after the fact, if you've had money come out, then for our plan, there's a specific form because you have to have them sign off on that.
Right.
You have to turn it into Transamerica because now the money's inside their plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go in and pull that money out and return it to them. So they have to sign off on that form and elect that they want it back.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if they're going in and creating an account before the plan is live or, before the first contribution, they just choose to opt out and they would be exempt from filling out this form.
And I should clarify that the opt-out only happens if you're automatically enrolled. So if you
Right.
voluntarily go in and enroll at 5%, you can change your deferral in most 401ks whenever you want. But
Right.
you're not going to necessarily be able to say, oh, I want to opt out now, send me my money. It's really intended for the person that took no action. They're automatically enrolled. Most 401k plans will have a qualified default investment account, meaning where's their money going to get invested.
Mm-hmm.
So on the GMS plan, it's a target retirement date fund based on their age and when they turn 65. So then that way, if they have money coming out and going into an account in their name, it's not just sitting in cash. If, the younger they are, the farther out the target date, the more aggressive. The older they are, the more conservative the target date fund.
Okay. That makes sense. Definitely probably something you'd want to put in your handbook, just FYI.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. When I'm talking to companies now about starting plans, I'm talking to everyone about it because
Right.
again, with it being December, almost December, everybody that's looking to start a plan, this is a feature that they're gonna have to be putting in place if they haven't.
Absolutely.
Like I said, if they established a plan last year, this year, it's a feature that they're having to amend to make as a new provision for 2025 anyway.
That makes sense.
There's
definitely.
plenty of alerts is the word that comes to mind, but what notices that go out. 401ks don't just get set up overnight. It's usually anywhere between a 60 to 90-day process because a lot of times we have to have 30-day notices. So the employees, if they read their email or open their mail, they know, they're going to be automatically enrolled or things are changing.
Yeah,
Right?
that's good.
Good. What are some of the most common investment options you guys are seeing right now?
So I would say the most common investment options in our plan, and again, everyone's going to have a different preference based off risk, time horizon, what they're comfortable investing in. But as Tom mentioned, those target date funds they tend to be the most common option.
Okay.
I feel they're the most common because they actually are what we call a set it and forget it fund. So for the average investor that really doesn't want to keep up with what's going on in the markets, or they don't feel comfortable choosing their own investment, those funds will actually allocate your portfolio for you based off when you turn 65. So again, if you're older, it will be a more conservative portfolio. If you're younger, it'll be a more aggressive portfolio. But those tend to be the most common option because they're the most hands-off.
Right.
But the lineup has plenty of funds, and if an individual wants to go in and create their own portfolio, they're more than capable.
But you don't see that often.
I wouldn't say it's not often. It's just the more common option would be the target date fund. which
Gotcha.
we have BlackRock as our money manager for that, one of the largest money managers in the world.
Very cool. What are most employers contributing to their 401k plan?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I get it a lot, and it honestly totally depends. And the reason why is there's testing that comes with 401k plans. So anyone watching this that has a 401k should know that their 401k plan is subject to IRS non-discrimination testing. It really affects, if a business owner is personally deferring to the plan.
Do you have to have a number of employees for that, or is it every plan?
Every plan is going to be subject to the testing requirements. Yeah.
Over 100 employees is subject to an audit.
Yes.
But
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
everybody's subject to testing unless you have a safe harbor match, which
So yeah, when you say what are they matching, it totally depends, because safe harbor plans allow you to pass the testing, which essentially means if an owner wants to be able to max out their contributions, safe harbor is something to consider, because usually an owner or family of owners, they're going to be classified as key employees, or even somebody that's classified as what's called a highly compensated employee, which anyone that made over $150,000 last year is highly compensated this year. Anyone making over $155,000 this year is going to be classified as highly compensated next year. So when we do these tests, and there's a number of different tests that are done, but you're looking at what is the average deferral rate of the employees compared to the highly compensated employees.
Okay.
And key employees. All key employees are highly compensated. So if owners are wanting to, say, max out, they may consider doing what's called a safe harbor plan, because again, safe harbor will allow them to pass the testing. Because what happens in a non-safe harbor plan, if my employees average 3% and let's just say I own my own business and I'm contributing 10%. So they're at 3, I'm at 10, money's going to come back out of my account at the end of the year. I'm not going to be able to contribute that full 10%. So in terms of what an employer can do to get around that, there's multiple different safe harbor options. So one that's really popular right now is what's called an automatic enrollment safe harbor match. So because automatic enrollment is becoming mandatory, these companies are putting in what's called an automatic enrollment safe harbor, a QACA. And the match formula is 100% of the first 1% and 50% of the next 5%.
Okay.
So if an employee contributes 6% of their paycheck, the company is going to match them 3.5%. And that's the only safe harbor option where you can actually have a small vesting schedule of 2 years. Vesting is how long does the employee have to work for you before all that money is yours to keep.
Yep.
The other options are a basic safe harbor. That was historically the most popular. It was a match up to 4%, 100% of the first 3, 50% of the next 2. You can go with enhanced matches, 100% of the first 4, 5, or 6%. And then we have some companies that utilize what's called a safe harbor non-elective contribution, where you're making a 3% contribution to all eligible employees regardless if they're contributing or not. So you could have 10 employees and only 2 are participating, but you're making a contribution to all 10 if they were eligible. So any one of those options is going to allow you to pass the testing, which again benefits highly compensated employees and key employees. And employees as well, because it's great employer contribution. Now, if they don't go with a safe harbor plan, they're not required to do an employer contribution. You don't have to. They could do what's called a discretionary contribution. And so, oftentimes I see discretionary contributions usually in the 1% to 3% range. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're matching 100% of the first 1. They might be doing 25% of the first 4%. So the employee has to contribute 4 to get 1%.
Gotcha. Okay.
the discretionary match allows the employer to choose what they want to contribute, right? So
Right.
some of them, especially when you're starting a 401k plan, there's a lot going on, and you're sitting here thinking, all right, am I going to be able to dish out 3% of my payroll? You don't know what next year's promised. So a lot of times they may start, if they're not doing the safe harbor, they're going to start with a discretionary, and they can always change it year over year.
Correct.
Yeah. Are there advantages to going with discretionary versus safe harbor?
You can have a vesting schedule
Okay.
on the employer contribution. So some companies don't like that the contribution might be immediately vested or even that 2-year vesting. So with a discretionary contribution, you can have a vesting schedule up to 6 years. Some
Okay.
employers like that. The advantage of
Keeps
discretionary,
people there, right?
correct,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
more flexible. I mean, you
Mhm.
can start it and stop it with notice. It's discretionary, so it's kind of what it sounds like. You have more flexibility. Whereas safe harbor, you're really committing to it for that year. And so for that reason, if you say start with discretionary and then want to change to safe harbor, there's notification. You have to give employees 30 days notice, and you can only do it into the next year. So like right now, with it being the end of November, companies have probably already put in that amendment or are
Right.
putting it in, say, today, because notice has to go out by December 1st to let those employees know they're going to be a safe harbor plan into the next year.
This is a lot to manage, and I feel like this is a really good transition to my next question.
And it changes every year.
And I mean, yeah, like crazy stuff that we have to manage as an employer, right? If you have a 401k plan. So I guess my next question, good transition here. What is the advantages of partnering with somebody to manage a plan for you? For example, like we have here at GMS a MEP plan, which is a multiple employer plan. So what would be the advantages of a multiple employer plan for a company out there right now that's looking to bring on 401k for their employees this next year?
Yeah, I mean, I typically think that there's three main benefits to a MEP. Number one is streamlined administration. So companies that are partnering with GMS, they're also doing payroll with us. And so everything is then streamlined with how an employee enrolls. That enrollment's filtering to the payroll system. If they're changing their deferral, it's filtering to the payroll system. We're then responsible for making sure those contributions are deducted. If there's match, collecting that match, getting it deposited. So there's very little, if any, day-to-day administration that an employer has to do with the 401k plan.
The hardest part of the 401k plan on the MEP platform is that the employer has to get it started.
Yeah.
After that, it's pretty hands-off.
Plug and play.
It is, yeah. There's some upfront work with building it out. So the employer still gets to decide how they want to set it up. What do I want as my eligibility? Do I want to go safe harbor or not? Things like that.
Are we also going to help with things like tax, like if there's any tax breaks for starting? I think there's a startup 401k plan.
Yeah, we didn't even
tax-free.
get into that.
We didn't even get into that.
There are tax credits for startup plans. Technically, if you're under 100 employees, you're going to be eligible for tax credits. But the sweet spot is really 1 to, I think, 50 employees is where you can kind of get the most bang for your buck.
Nice. But we would help kind of educate
Correct. Yeah, we
employers
can't
on
file the
this.
tax credit, but because we're handling payroll, we know those numbers. We're going to know what tax credits they'll be eligible for.
Nice. And be able to advise to that, which is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's really three main credits. There's a startup and administrative tax credit, an automatic enrollment tax credit, and then a newer one that came along with Secure Act 2.0 is an employer contribution credit. So employers that are actually making contributions to employees
Can now get
can
credits.
potentially get,
That's
and there's
great.
specific rules around, what an employee has to make to be eligible to get that, and
Awesome.
how long these tax credits last for. But we have all that information.
Well, that's fantastic for employers looking to start a 401k plan, especially partnering with a GMS.
Yeah.
Where we're going to kind of handle all those things for them.
And one thing,
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
If they already have a plan, I think we've talked a lot about starting up.
Yeah.
But if they already have a plan and they're with GMS maybe for payroll, HR, and they don't have the 401k here yet, they can absolutely roll that their old 401k or their current 401k onto the MEP platform if they feel the benefits are better than what they're receiving now.
Love that. Pretty easy transition.
Yeah, we help to manage
Yeah.
it. What people sometimes don't realize is you can't snap your fingers and move the money. It's not like an individual who's choosing to, directly roll money over. And so, I can submit paperwork today. I'll have the money. I'll have a check in a week and I can send it into the new provider. We have to move the whole plan. It typically takes somewhere in the 60 to 90 day time frame to actually move money. But that's something that we're evaluating with a lot of prospects and existing clients. And part of it is they provide fee disclosure, so we're able to do a fee comparison and see, what is the pricing of their current plan versus what the pricing is of the GMS plan. Because that is one other advantage of our plan, is that oftentimes we'll create economies of scale because we're aggregating all of these clients together, building up a larger asset base, which gives us some buying power with our provider. And so, for example, we look at these fees constantly. I mean, I've been with GMS almost 13 years now, and it seems like every couple of years the fee structure's gone down, and it's going to go down again. It's starting 1/1/25. The fee structure is going to go down a little bit.
Well, that's
inside of our
excellent
plan.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's for employers and employees?
It's typically on the employee end because,
Gotcha.
again, a bulk of the fees that are charged inside the 401k are directly affecting the employee's
Yeah.
account, and so that's oftentimes where you're going to see the most savings, if any.
Yeah, the fees are tied into the account, no different than if you have a investment account with an independent advisor, they're going to charge you a fee on the dollar amount that's, it's usually a basis point on the dollar amount that you have with them. the 401k fees are very similar to that. Now, there's nuances where if you go in and make an amendment to your plan, the TPA is going to charge you a fee, but the fees that are affecting the employees are based, a basis point on their account. Another benefit to the MEP is that we have a 338 and a 316 designation on the MEP platform, which basically means that the 338 takes all the investment liability off of the business owner. They no longer sign the 5500 stating that I've shopped the plan around, I've done all my due diligence, I know that these funds are the best funds available. We handle all that, and Raymond James handles all that. So, and then on the 316 designation, that's all the administrative work. Again, notices, things like notices and any filings that are done, GMS and Transamerica are handling that for the business owner. So the business owner, again, is plug and play. They don't have to do anything, and they're also not taking any of the risk.
That's great. Transfer of risk is always important, and it helps business owners sleep better at night, for sure. Any last thoughts you guys have about a business maybe who's considering maybe partnering with a GMS for 401k?
Yeah, I would encourage you to reach out. I mean, we'd be happy to talk to you, talk through if you're looking to establish a plan, talk through the logistics of how to set one up, talk through the testing. I mean, on this platform, I didn't even touch probably a tenth of what I talked to with a business owner in terms of how testing works. Talk tax credits, obviously, if you haven't had a plan. And that's the big thing, because tax credits are really only available for companies that haven't offered a plan. So if you have a plan, and you merge it in, you're not going to be eligible for tax credits. Or if you've had another type of retirement plan, like there's things out there called simple IRAs, which a lot of companies will offer, you might not necessarily be eligible for tax credits. But
are those going away after 2025, or do you expect those to be kind of something that is offered?
The tax credits?
Yeah.
No, I don't see the tax credits going away.
Okay.
I mean, they're
great to know.
Yeah. I mean, tax credits have been around on the 401k plan for a little while. They really enhanced them with the Secure Act 2.0.
Nice.
And so, no, I think, especially with the employer contribution credit, I mean, they're incentivizing companies that start a plan to make an employer contribution. So I think, these credits are a way for the government to try and incentivize companies to start plans.
Yeah.
Because there are states out there that are saying, hey, if you don't offer a retirement plan, you have to go through a state-mandated IRA. There's a lot of states that are already doing this.
Yeah.
There's
Isn't
a lot
California
of states.
one of them?
California is one of them.
Yeah.
I know Illinois is one of them.
Did Arizona
In
just pass this
Colorado.
as well?
I don't know off the top of my head. So again, that's why I'll lean on Transamerica for when they have a whole sheet on who's, in the process of legislation, who's already passed it.
Yeah.
When things like that will take effect. And then, oftentimes when they roll these out, they'll phase them in, starting, okay, if you have 50 or more, you definitely have to do it now. Then at this point in time, 25 or more,
Okay.
all the way down to 5 or more, or even, possibly even 1 or more. I don't know the specifics off the top of my head, but companies that offer an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k don't then necessarily have to get into the state-mandated plan because they're already offering a plan.
Nice.
And then they're in control of what that plan looks like for their employees. They can offer an employer contribution
Right.
should they want, whether it be safe harbor or discretionary contribution.
Love that. This is kind of all going full circle into the fact that, there's a retirement epidemic in this country. And I think that, these tax credits are a great way for business owners to offer a plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and on the DWT side, we offer quarterly 401k education to all adopters on the plan. We also offer an annual financial workshop, which is a 5-day workshop. The times vary. Some days it's at 8 a.m., some days it's at noon, some days in the afternoon, but that also goes out to any adopter employee on the plan. And we really want to be in front of the GMS employers and people on the plan,
Right.
the adopters, because we offer retirement planning. If they have any questions, whether it's in regards to their 401k or other monies, we're here to help. So we really like to. The last thing we want to hear is we haven't. You hear a lot. We haven't seen our 401k person in forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the last thing we want to hear. So
That's great.
Yeah, we've been partnered with Racco and his firm going back to, I think, 2015, 2016. And so they've been a great partner of GMS because we really look at them as the educational wing of this 401k plan.
Yeah.
To be able to educate employees. And then, Racco mentioned on the back end, be monitoring the investment options that are on our platform, because obviously that comes with oversight and fiduciary responsibility. And so using their broker-dealer Raymond James to act as our 338. It's been a great partnership.
Wonderful. Well, good. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today. It was very enlightening. I learned a lot, and hopefully you did as well. So thank you to our business owners listening. Once again, my name is Alyse Kimble, host of the People's Podcast. I hope you join us for our next one. Thank you for tuning into the People's Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion helpful. Stay tuned for more insights in our next episode. For more expert guidance and resources on small business management, PEOs, and more, give our podcast a follow. Find us on social media or visit us at groupmanagement.com. That's groupmgmt.com. We're dedicated to helping small businesses everywhere make their operations simpler, safer, and stronger.